That's right. And they had special format that made it a successful growing concern.
And
the identification was one of it.
Right,
so when you tuned in, you always knew who the character was and what they were doing.
As far as Frank and Anne Hummert were concerned, they ran a tight ship, didn't they?
They certainly did, and they have very specific ideas and did a grand job. I mean, they
people
really had,
perhaps are wondering
I think they
how...
had 5 or 6 a day. They had Stella Dallas,
Right.
Widow Brown, Lora Lawton, Amanda of Honeymoon Hill, Helen Trent, Lorenzo Jones, David Harum. They were all Hummert shows.
Yeah. How did they manage to produce so many shows?
Well, they had a group of directors and a group of producers and a group of writers. I mean, they had a tremendous organization. And then, of course, they had coordinators, and Frances von Bernhardi was head of casting, and she had assistants. And it was like working for MGM.
The woman you just heard is famed New York character actress Jan Miner. In the mid-1940s, Jan was on multiple soap operas, like Lora Lawton.
Jan Miner, let's talk about Lora Lawton. Now, this was one of the top soap operas, I must confess, and I think
very
Ed would
early
agree.
in the morning. I know that. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning.
I didn't follow the adventures of Lora Lawton, but perhaps...
Wasn't easy. We did everything.
What was the character like, or what was the situation
She was a
generally?
marvelous, wonderful, beautiful, lovely lady. She's what all of us would like to be as women, you know, understanding, sympathetic, able to go through crises of all kinds.
Well, and what were the crises like? What
Well,
were the
I remember
problems?
one day Laura was visiting a friend who was dying of a dread disease in the hospital. After talking with her for a while as best she could, where, as a matter of fact, Mary Jane Higby played the friend who was sick, and she was going all the time in the deathbed. And I looked down and said, "Oh, Elizabeth Manning, what a beautiful, complete replica of Queen Hatshepsut's pin she was wearing." It was a giveaway that we were giving away, and people would write in and get it. But always it would happen in some tragic moment so that you could hardly say the words, you know. And I got caught on the Hatshepsuts, and I said, "Queen Hatshepsut," and Ray Johnson broke up laughing. Mary Jane was dying, laughing. Everybody was laughing on that microphone. It must have been tragic to the listeners who were really involved with the situation.
Yes,
you know,
I can imagine
having us all go, and Rosa Rio's organ playing big music to keep us from...
Many top shows were produced by Frank and Anne Hummert. The Hummert radio ties grew from a prominent Chicago advertising agency, Blackett-Sample-and Hummert. Frank Hummert was a celebrated copywriter. His wife, Anne Schumacher Ashenhurst Hummert, began as an editorial assistant and quickly earned respect throughout the organization, thanks to her ingenuity, insight, and resolve. By the 1940s, the duo controlled 4.5 hours of national weekday broadcast schedules. They brought in more than half of the network's daytime hour advertising revenue, and their shows received more than 5 million pieces of correspondence annually. When they switched their productions from Chicago to New York, they began employing some of New York's most famous character actors. At 11 a.m. Eastern Time from New York, Amanda of Honeymoon Hill signed on starring Joy Hathaway. The show used a familiar Hummert theme: the common girl who marries into a rich aristocratic family. She lives in the fictional Honeymoon Hill in Virginia.
Now the makers of Phillips Milk of Magnesia tablets present Amanda of Honeymoon Hill, radio's drama of love and life in wartime in the romantic South. The story of a beautiful valley girl, Amanda Dyke, who married the son of the aristocratic family up on the hill, Edward Layton. Today, at the end of our show, a special appeal will be made to every woman in America who is eligible to join the Waves. Hundreds of thousands of Waves are needed urgently, at once. Full details will be given at the end of the broadcast. And now for our drama, Amanda of Honeymoon Hill. Amanda is troubled, deeply troubled. She is thinking,
Ever since Edward and I had to leave our lovely home in Virginia, come here to Washington to live, we've been plunged into such a different world. Of course, we had to come when Edward was given such an important war job, assisting Mr. Foster in his huge airplane factory. Of course, I wanted to come with him when he said he needed me here, but... Well, now we've had to move into Mr. Foster's home, Edward and I. Oh, it's a beautiful place here in Chevy Chase. We have our own little suite of rooms. Mr. and Mrs. Foster are both so good to us. But I don't want to seem ungrateful, truly, but I do so wish Edward and I could be alone, that we didn't have to live with them and with Bettina.
If Amanda knew the full truth, she'd wish far more urgently that she didn't have to live in the same house with Bettina Foster. For Bettina, the glamorous, unscrupulous daughter of Edward Layton's employer, is greatly attracted to Edward. Under a pretense of friendliness to Amanda, Bettina is bent on making trouble for her. And last night, Bettina did her best to stir up trouble between her young cousin, Jeanette Lawrence, and Jeanette's soldier husband who was away at camp. Now it's after dinner, and Edward and Amanda are talking in the sitting room of their suite in the Foster home.
Oh, that was Jeanette who just telephoned me, Edward. She asked me if I could meet her tonight or if she could come here to see me for a little while. Of course, I told her to come here.
I'm so glad you did, darling. In 10 or 15 minutes, I'll have to leave you and join Mr. Foster in the library. Oh. We have a lot of work to go over, but I do hate walking out on you when you've no other plans for tonight.
Oh, darling, I've a million and one things I ought to be doing. Stockings to wash and buttons to sew on your shirts and things like that. You don't have to worry ever, dear, about leaving me alone. Your work is the important thing.
I know, but just the same, I do worry, Amanda, darling. I'm so afraid that you'll get thinking of home and Robert Elijah and missing him too much.
I do miss him, Edward. I wouldn't be a mother if I didn't miss my baby terribly. But tonight, well, leaving him in our home so I could be with you, that's my war job, Edward. And we do have each other. Look at poor Jeanette. She's all alone.
Yes, poor kid. It's tough on her and on all the young wives who have to carry on alone while their husbands are in the service. But she's a brave girl, and...
Yes, she has been brave, Edward, all along. So brave. But now, and Bettina's... Oh, Dalton, I've been so upset all day remembering the things that Bettina said last night.
Huh? What things?
To Jeanette, of course. Oh, Edward, I forgot I haven't told you about that. I haven't truly had a chance. Well, you know Bettina and I had dinner last night at Jeanette's apartment.
Yes, and you did tell me what a charming little apartment it is, and how much Jeanette loves it because it's her first real home.
She almost had me crying, Edward, when she told me how she and Jack chose all the furnishings together before he went into the army, and how she's working so hard to keep the home for him till he comes back. She loves him so much, and she needs so terribly to believe in his love for her.
Well, from all I've heard, he does love her with all his heart. And from what Jeanette said, I'm sure they're a particularly devoted couple.
I think so, too, Edward. Well, for 2 whole weeks now, Jeanette hasn't had a letter from him. Not a single line. Though she writes him every day, and she's nearly frantic, of course.
Oh, I see. Yes, of course that's tough on her, but she's foolish to be so anxious. If her husband had been sent overseas, Jeanette would have received a notification of an APO address.
Oh, well, that's not what's worrying her so terribly, Edward. She's not afraid Jack's been sent out of the country.
Well, then what?
Well, it's the things that Bettina keeps telling her. Bettina says that, well, that with a man, new places mean new faces. That out of sight's out of mind.
Oh, rot. Surely, Amanda, Jeanette doesn't believe
Doesn't
that.
want to believe Jack could forget her or deliberately neglect her, but she... Well, Edward, you know how Jeanette's always lived in Bettina's shadow and is influenced by Bettina's opinions. And every time that Bettina sees Jeanette, she keeps telling her
I can imagine. I can well imagine the poisonous doubts that Bettina would express. I suppose she has Jack spending his evenings with some other girl, having himself a heck of a good time and forgetting his wife entirely.
That's it exactly, Edward. It's just the very things Bettina keeps saying.
Then she ought to have her mouth washed out with soap. That's despicable. It's worse than that. It's almost a form of treason. Army officers have emphasized over and over how important it is to a soldier's morale for him to have complete faith in his wife and to know that she has complete faith in him. And for an outsider to destroy that faith, well, it's like destroying one of our soldiers. It's aiding the enemy.
Edward, I wish Bettina could hear you saying that. or that I'd been able to put it to her that way, so clearly and sternly. I did tell her she was wrong, all wrong, talking to Jeanette like that, but I wasn't able to stop her.
And couldn't Jeanette stop her?
No, she was too upset, all overwrought, crying. Oh, Edward, I'm so sorry for her, because I know how she feels. It really isn't that Jeanette lacks faith in Jack. It's herself she doubts.
Herself? Well, just what do you mean, Amanda?
Well, it's sort of hard to express, but you know how it's been with Jeanette, growing up a poor relation in this house, always having to be grateful for hand-me-down clothes. And she never was as pretty as Bettina, nor as clever, and she never really expected much happiness for herself.
But she did find happiness with Jack.
Yes, but it was never a happiness she could take for granted. Because to Jeanette, it seemed like a miracle that Jack should love her and choose her to marry. Edward, you know, darling, it's so easy to doubt a miracle. Especially with Bettina constantly telling her Jack's probably stepping out with some other girl.
Well, if Jeanette believes that, then she deserves to be unhappy.
Edward, darling, you don't truly understand. I don't suppose any man could understand just how Jeanette feels. But that's the way women are made. And Bettina's so clever. The way she can twist things. Why, last night she was advising Jeanette to write Jack a scorching letter.
And will you tell me, please, just where Bettina gets off advising other women how to handle their husbands when she hasn't managed to get one of her own? Hasn't anyone ever told Bettina that she hasn't done so well for herself?
No, I don't suppose anyone's ever dared to tell Bettina that. But, darling, if anyone tried, she has her answer already.
Her answer?
Yes. She'd say that she had loads and loads of chances to marry. That men have been trying to marry her since she was 18, but that she always gets tired of a man by the time he proposes. So she refuses him.
I think you have something there. Yes, that's just about what Bettina would say. You made a pretty shrewd guess, Amanda.
Oh, it's more than a guess. Well, only the other day, Bettina was telling me that the really popular girl, the one who's sure of her beauty and charm for men, she never marries very young. She said that the girl who's never had a sweetheart before and is afraid she'll never get another grabs at the very first man she can get and then marries him before he quite knows what's happening to him.
Well, I'll be darned. That beats anything I've ever heard. So marrying young is a proof of unattractiveness in a woman. And being unmarried at 29, Bettina must be all of that, is proof of her devastating charm.
Well, yes, that's the general idea. It means that Bettina's so sure she can get a husband any time she wants that she doesn't have to hurry. Poor Jeanette and I, why, we just had to take what we could get while the going was good.
Take it and like it, I hope. You do still like being married to me, Mrs. Layton?
Well, I managed to stand it, Mr. Layton. Edward, darling, you're picking up your briefcase. Oh, and that means...
Yes, I'm afraid it does. It means that I'm going to take time to kiss you just once, and then I must hie me downstairs for that conference in the library with Mr. Foster. And it'll give you a good chance to talk to Jeanette and try to knock some sense into her head. She ought to be here soon.
I'll do my best, darling. I only wish that you could talk to her yourself.
I will sometime, when I get a good chance. Goodbye, darling.
Bye.
Don't wait up for me. I may be very late.
I must remember what Edward said. Every word of it, so that I can tell Jeanette. Army officers have told us over and over how important it is to a soldier's morale for him to have complete faith in his wife and to know that she has complete faith in him. There she is now. Come on in. Oh, Jeanette, darling, I'm so... Oh, Bettina, it's you.
Yes, it's Bettina. Were you expecting Jeanette? I didn't know.
Well, she just telephoned a little while ago that she was coming over.
To see you? Well, then maybe you'd rather that... I only came up because I thought you'd be alone.
Now, don't be foolish, Bettina. She'll want to see you, of course. Sit down, please. Make yourself comfortable.
Well, it seems very queer that Jeanette didn't telephone me. After all, she's my cousin.
That must be Jeanette now. Jeanette, dear, I was beginning to be afraid that you were lost. Why, Jeanette, whatever's wrong?
That's what I came to tell you, Amanda. Oh, hello, Bettina.
Jeanette Lawrence, if you don't look like something the cat dragged in. You're as white as paper. Your eyes are like two burnt holes in a blanket. What have you been doing, crying yourself sick over Jack?
No, Bettina. I'm through with crying. Through with being a trusting little fool. I've taken your advice. Last night after you left, I wrote Jack that letter, and the things I said fairly scorched the page.
Oh, Jeanette, you didn't. Jeanette, you mustn't mail it.
It's already mailed. I went right out to a post office the minute I'd finished and sent it airmail.
Good. I only hope you told him plenty.
Yes, I told him. Told him I wouldn't stand for it, being treated this way, being neglected and tricked by...
Jeanette. Oh, my dear, my poor dear.
For heaven's sakes, let's not have a scene. Just when Jeanette's beginning to show some gumption. My dear, you were perfectly right to send that letter. I'm proud of you.
Leave me alone. Leave me alone. You made me write that letter, Bettina, and I hope you're satisfied. Because I'd give my right hand if only I'd never written it. If only I could take it back.
But not all the wishing in the world can bring back a letter that's been written and mailed. These poisoned darts of words that Jeanette put on paper are winging their way to pierce the heart of her soldier husband. What will Jack Lawrence do when he receives that letter? And now that she has done her worst with Jeanette, what new trouble is Bettina to make for Amanda? Today we make an urgent appeal to the women of America to join the waves. As you know, our American Navy has now become the biggest in the world, in a growth so quick, so rapid, it is non-paralleled in history. This rapid growth of the Navy has made it necessary now, today, for the Navy to call upon the women of America for one of the most important jobs women have been asked to do in this war, to enlist by the thousands as waves. You're needed to put on the glorious blue uniform of the Navy, to step in and free a sailor from a shore job so that he can take his place on one of the hundreds of new Navy ships and planes which must now go forward to fight in the fiercest battles of the war. As a wave, you may help direct the takeoff and landing of Navy planes as a control tower operator, send and receive important code messages, help locate men and ships at sea, make up weather charts, and so forth. The only qualifications to become a wave are you must be an American citizen, 20 to 35 years old, with at least 2 years of high school or business school training, and no children under 18. The age limit for officers is 20 to 49 years. For full details, go to your nearest Navy recruiting station today. Do this at once, today. Our American Navy needs you as a wave in order to use its mighty strength most effectively in the days just ahead. Amanda of Honeymoon Hill is presented each day at this time by the makers of Phillips Milk of Magnesia tablets. Don't miss our broadcast tomorrow. And please stay tuned for Second Husband, which follows immediately. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
When Amanda of Honeymoon Hill signed off, another Hummert show, Second Husband, signed on, starring Helen Menken. Miss Menken is perhaps best remembered today as Humphrey Bogart's first wife, but she was a talented actress in her own right. Throughout its history, one of the show's announcers was Andre Baruch.
In those days, after every program, you gave your name.
Mm-hmm.
You are listening to Morning Melodies, your announcer, Andre Baruch. You have listened to whatever, your announcer, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And you did that 5, 6, 7 times a day, 6, 7 days a week. As a result, your name went out over the air, over a national network, constantly, for years on end. And people got to know your name. Today, the announcer is anonymous. And he makes more money. Because he can do a lot of things. Commercials, as an example. You can spot me on a commercial like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do a lot of them, but not nearly as many if my voice and style were not so distinctive.
Now, Second Husband, starring Helen Menken as Brenda Cummings. Second Husband is presented by the makers of Dr. Lyon's Tooth Powder. Brenda has just delivered an ultimatum to her 16-year-old daughter, Fran, and to Elsa King that Fran is to leave Elsa's house and come home by the next day, even though Fran wants to stay, declaring that she doesn't like her own home anymore, preferring Elsa's, where she considers herself understood. Elsa's understanding of Fran consists of two things: trying to put the girl on the stage against Brenda's wishes and turning her against her mother. Brenda is desperate to know how to combat Elsa's influence, and as soon as she reaches her apartment, she goes to her old friend Ben for advice.
Brenda, honey, what's the matter? Did you find Fran real sick?
Oh, she's sick, Ben. Way you mean?
Why, what's wrong with her?
Oh, what's wrong with her is Elsa King.
Huh?
Ben, I'm frightened out of my wits. I really am. That woman has taken my daughter and made her into someone else. Why, you wouldn't know her if you heard her talk.
Now, wait a minute. I don't get this. What are you trying to tell me?
That Elsa King, bit by bit, word by word, has made Fran believe horrible things about me.
But-
That I don't love her, that I'm jealous of any possible career that she might have, and above all, that I don't understand her.
Come now, honey. Fran knows better than such tomfool stuff. Why, she's got a mind of her own. She ain't going to let a woman that she's known a week tell her what to think about you that she's known for 16 years.
Yes, but it's happened, Ben. I haven't exaggerated a word.
Well, you don't think you have, but it's all in your head.
Oh.
Why, there can't a word of it be true.
But Fran said those very words to me, Ben.
I don't believe it. Not Fran. Not to you.
I know. I couldn't believe it myself. It kept going through my head as I stood there listening to her that, well, this isn't my daughter, Fran. None of this is happening. But it was, Fran. And it did happen, Ben. What am I going to do?
Well, did you come off and leave Fran with that woman?
She wouldn't come along with me. At first they pretended it was because Fran was too sick to be moved. But she wasn't that sick, Ben. She just didn't want to come. And finally, she said so to me.
Well, I don't care what she said. She hadn't ought to be left around that... Well, I ain't in the habit of calling ladies names, but I'd sure like to call that one some right now.
Oh, Ben, I didn't want to leave Fran there, but I couldn't pick her up bodily and carry her off. And she wouldn't obey me. Do you hear that, Ben? Fran, who's always been the most obedient child in the world, defied me completely.
Well, I can pick her up bodily and carry her off, and what's more, I'll do it.
Well, I told them that you'd come for Fran tomorrow, Ben.
Tonight, this minute. I ain't going to have her there. And as soon as I get her here, I'm going to give her a good licking. She ain't too big for one. She's proved that.
But I'm afraid none of that is going to solve the problem, Ben. It's a bigger thing than you know, perhaps bigger than I know. But I do know this much. It's not going to be easy to lead Fran back to being her old self again.
Well, what in tarnation made that Elsie want to change her? Wasn't Fran all right the way she was?
Well, we know how it all began, Ben. Elsa King's determination to put Fran into that first show that she was producing.
Yeah.
But it's even gone further than that now. I think that, well, Elsa King is neurotic in the extreme, and in some twisted way she really thinks of Fran as her own daughter, really believes that she has the right to control her and plan for her. And that's what makes all this truly dangerous, Ben. So, how do you handle a thing like that? I don't know where to begin. I just don't know.
Well, Brenda, I ain't so sure that you're right. Now, if you ask me, Elsie King is nothing more nor less than a spoiled woman that wants her own way. Now, she wanted Fran in her play, and you balked her. She's fit to be tied, that anyone would dare to stand up to her. So she's doing everything low and sneaking that she can to get back at you. Now, all that other stuff about her thinking that Fran's her daughter just don't make good sense.
Well, good sense or not, Ben, it's true. I know it is. And I've got to combat it some way, somehow, for Fran's sake. Elsa's got to be made to stop undermining my daughter's faith in me. But how to do it, Ben? How?
Oh, honey, you got me out of my depth. Folks don't act that way where I come from. All I got to say is that I wish Elsie King was a man, because it'd pleasure me considerable to knock someone down that's acting the way she is.
Well, if Grant were only here, he'd know what to do. Oh, but he's not here. He's fighting a war on the other side of the world, and I'm fighting one of my own right here.
Yeah, likely Grant'd know what to do.
Oh, Ben.
Huh?
What about Mildred?
But now, don't go talking about Mildred. I'm mad enough as it is. If I got to thinking about that sister of yours, I'd like as not blow up. She started this here whole thing in the beginning.
That's just it, Ben. She did start it.
Ah.
And she apparently has some influence with Elsa King, or she could never have got her interested in my daughter, Fran. Maybe Maybe we could get her to use that influence for the good, Ben.
Any time Mildred Turner uses her influence for the good, I'll know the world's coming to an end.
But she might, Ben. She just might. It's worth the trying. Anything is worth trying.
You can try, but I'll tell you before you start, you might as well save your breath.
Well, you're probably right. Even though I think Fran is too inexperienced, Mildred thinks Fran should go on the stage, and she's already against me. But still in all, Ben, she doesn't know these other things about Elsa, what she's doing to Fran. So maybe if I told her right now...
And maybe not. You know Mildred ain't never agreed with anyone in her family yet. And there ain't no reason to believe that she's going to change now.
Yes, but she loves Fran. She wouldn't want to hurt Fran or see
my
that...
name. What are you two saying about me behind my back? I hope it's nice.
Well, I'll tell you what we were saying. We were saying that...
Hush, Ben. Mildred, I need your help desperately. I need you desperately.
Why, Brenda, darling, of course. What can I do? Whatever's wrong?
Well, you see, it's Fran.
Now, Brenda, for heaven's sakes, if that's what you want my help about, you've come to the wrong person. You know very well that I think Fran should start her career now. And I'm not so wishy-washy that I can alter my firm convictions just to please you.
No. It's not the stage this time, Mildred. It's something else. Something that you haven't heard about. You see, Fran wants to stay at Elsa King's. She doesn't want to come home. She wants
Does Elsa want her?
Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you, Mildred. Elsa is keeping her there. She's keeping...
But how marvelous. Isn't Fran the lucky girl? That beautiful house, all those servants. How I envy her.
Mildred, you don't understand. Elsa has turned Fran against me, against her own home.
Oh, how utterly silly, Brenda.
But it's true. It's true, and I've got to get her away from there. Don't you see, Mildred?
I certainly don't see. What I see is that you've got the most ridiculous and macabre imagination, and that you're overwrought. You need a vacation. I've always said you work too hard. And that's one perfectly good reason why you should let Fran go on the stage and make some money for you.
Listen to her. The same old thing, same old Mildred.
You keep out of this, Ben Porter. I've nothing to say to you.
Well, I'm glad of that, but I got plenty to say to you. Now, you look here, Mildred. You started this thing with Elsie King, and now you can just unstart it.
I started it?
Yes.
Started what?
No, it's no use, Ben. You see, Mildred won't help us.
Well, it ain't no disappointment to me, because I never expected her to.
But I don't understand what I'm expected to do.
Mildred, would it do any good for me to tell you?
Not a lick.
Tell me. At least I'd like to get this straight.
You never had anything straight in your life.
Brenda, if you don't stop Ben talking to me this way, I won't listen to a word.
Please, Ben, please.
Oh, excuse me, Mildred. I wouldn't get you ruffled up for the world. No, I take it all back. I never meant a word of it. I think you're the smartest, best, helpfulest lady in the world. Now, does that suit you?
Your sarcasm leaves me unmoved.
Well, ain't that a pity?
No, Ben. All of this doesn't help. Be quiet, please, so I can tell Mildred what I wanted to do.
All right, honey, all right. Not a peep out of me.
All right, then. Mildred, if you'd go to Elsa King and tell her that she's hurting Fran, really hurting her, by mixing up her mind and taking away all her beliefs, then maybe she'd stop. I told her, but she wouldn't listen to me. Elsa King doesn't like me. She likes you. Will you do that for me, Mildred?
But, Brenda, it's all so fantastic.
Fantastic or not, it's what's happening, I know. I've seen Fran, and I tell you that she's changed already, and she'll change all the more. So, will you go to Elsa and try and show her what she's doing?
My dear Brenda, I wouldn't dare have the effrontery to tell Elsa what to do. How could I interfere?
How could you interfere? Well, I'm a piebald pony. To think I live to see the day that Mildred Turner says she can't interfere with no one. Her as wouldn't bat an eye to interfere with a king on his throne if she had the mind to. I don't know how you got the gall to stand there and speak those words. Any more than I can see how you got the nerve to refuse your own sister when you started the trouble to begin with. Ain't you the least bit ashamed is what I want to know. Ain't you?
Brenda, if you can keep Ben quiet for one peaceful minute, I have something I'd like to say to you.
Never mind about me. I'm getting out of here. I can't stand to hear no more.
There you are now, Mildred. He's gone. Tell me what you have to say.
In spite of the fact that I think all this excitement is perfectly ridiculous, I'll speak to Elsa.
Oh, will you? Will you, Mildred? I'm sure it'll do some good. And I do thank you. Will you go and see her right now.
Oh, I suppose so. If I must, I must.
You know, Mildred, Ben's really wrong about you. Because sisters do stick together. And I knew that you'd help me in a crisis.
Is Ben so wrong? Will Mildred really help? Or will she, as is her habit, bungle things all the more? We'll find out tomorrow in Second Husband. And now, Miss Helen Mencken.
Today, we should like to end our broadcast by the reading of this special Invasion Day prayer by the Right Reverend Henry St. George Tucker. Almighty and most merciful God, Father of all mankind, lover of every life, hear, we beseech thee, the cry of thy children in this dark hour of conflict and danger. Thou hast been the refuge and strength in all generations of those who put their trust in thee. May it please thee this day to draw to thyself the hearts of those who struggle and endure to the uttermost. Have mercy on them, and suffer not their faith in thee to fail. Guide and protect them by thy light and strength, that they may be kept from evil. May thy comfort be sufficient for all who suffer pain, or who wait in the agony of uncertainty. O righteous and most powerful God, who in their tragedies and conflicts judgest the hearts of men and purposes of nations, enter into this struggle with thy transforming power, that out of its anguish there may come a victory of righteousness. May there arise a new order which shall endure, because in it thy will shall be done on earth as it is in heaven. Forgive us and cleanse us, as well as those who strive against us, that we may be fit instruments of thy purposes. Unto thy most gracious keeping we commend our loved ones and ourselves, ascribing unto thee all praise and glory through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Second Husband, starring Helen Mencken as Brenda Cummings, will be on the air at the same time tomorrow. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.